Hi and welcome back to my channel. We had a massive day in the stock market, and more specifically with Bitcoin. There's a ton going on. Stocks are all over the place. Most of them are up, some are down. And as I mentioned, Bitcoin has exploded yet again. So we'll get right into it. So we can see on the day, I am up $503.50 or nearly 4%. On the week, up nearly $1,300, which is awesome. Over the past month now, up about $917 or 7.5%. 3 months, we're looking at about $2,000 in gains. Over the past year, up $3,850, over 40%, and all-time now up 40.62% or $3,838.74. As I mentioned, this is an all-time high, but if we look at this graph, we can see really a gigantic spike. I haven't had anything like this in the nearly 2 years that I've had this Robinhood account, but it's awesome to see, and I will definitely take it. If we go over here, we can see the total investment in my account is now $9,450 to go with those nearly over $3,800 in gains. Over the past week, I did deposit another $150 into my account. With that, I made 3 purchases. First, I purchased $50 more Bitcoin just before that spike. Price there was $13,313.46. Quantity was 0.00375 Bitcoin. My new position is 0.262 Bitcoin, so that's awesome. We'll get to that later in the video. I purchased one more share of SPHD, which of course is my S&P 500 high dividend yielding ETF. So I purchased one share there at $32.31, and I purchased one more share of KO or Coca-Cola at $47.83. That one was also up a ton this week. We won't talk about it, but definitely good to see in the portfolio. But as I mentioned before, the big news is Bitcoin. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like the video. It makes a huge difference in the algorithm and getting this video out to as many people as possible. Here we have a pretty short article from Cointelegraph. It says extreme greed and FOMO taking hold as Bitcoin nudges $16,000. Bitcoin's powered to its highest price since early 2018 as the buying frenzy continues. Bitcoin has just powered up to its highest price since January 8, 2018, knocking on the door of $16,000 as FOMO grips the markets once again. In a move upwards that has added more than 12% over the past 24 hours, Bitcoin prices touched their highest levels for 33 months, reaching $15,980 during early trading in Asia today, of course, November 6th. This is going to come out significantly later. I'm working my best to get caught up. You just got to work with me there. It says the 16K level may form resistance since there were 2 weekly closes at 16,100 in early January 2018. So if this week's candle can hold on to these levels, there could be a push higher towards that elusive all-time high. Of course, as somebody that's actively purchasing Bitcoin every week and has done so for roughly the past year and a half, I don't really want to see an all-time high right now. I would prefer to see prices lower, but let me know what you guys think about that. I, of course, think that Bitcoin's going to spike at the end of next year based on history, or really the every 4-year spike that we see with Bitcoin. So it says analysts have noted that the price of Bitcoin is now 80% of its all-time high, the closest it's ever been to full recovery, which has only taken 12 days on average from these levels historically. This is a little bit different, I think. I would imagine that a lot of it's due to the uncertainty with the election, really the uncertainty with COVID. We just don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. There's just a lot that we don't know. So it says, also interesting to note, Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index just spiked to extreme greed and a 90 on a scale of 0 to 100. Not great to see, but definitely an interesting take. So it says the Fear and Greed Index is currently cranked over to the extreme greed zone at 90. The last time it was this high was in June 2019 when it reached 92, as Bitcoin powered to its highest price for that year, just under 14K. Experienced investors such as billionaire former hedge fund manager Mike Novogratz advised against emotion-based selling in a recent tweet. He said, the hardest thing to do in a bull market is to sit. My pal Paul Jones calls it the pain of the game. This is a Bitcoin bull market. Your job is to sit on your hands and lock away your phone. It's a very interesting point. It's really hard to do nothing when you're losing money, and it's really hard to do nothing when you're making money. You just have this natural instinct to want to do something, and sometimes the best thing to do is absolutely nothing. Fortunately, I think I'm in a position where I don't have to do anything with my portfolio. I'd like to see it grow. I'm pretty active about checking it every single day, so I'm just going to let it sit for as long as humanly possible. It says the U.S. election results may have been the catalyst for this week's rally as Joe Biden extends his lead over Donald Trump with counting almost concluded. At the time of the press, Biden was leading 264 to 214 in the race to 270 with just 5 states left to go. Square has also just recorded record-breaking revenue and profit from Bitcoin sales on its Cash app. Again, This is very behind. I'm sure that the whole election fiasco will be over by then, by the time this video comes out. But great news for Bitcoin, and certainly something I will continue to track. Now we'll get into the stocks in my portfolio. The first one for today is Sunrun, trading at $59.47. Total market value is up to about $1,600. I've mentioned before, this is broken because I moved those shares over from Vivint Solar. I can go back and look at some of my older videos. I want to say my cost basis was somewhere around $500 or $600, so I'm up a ton on this Alltime. So still very good to see. Total portfolio diversity makes up about 12%. If we zoom out to the month, we can see it's down considerably since that merger. Over the past 3 months, still up 27%. Over the past year, up 300%, and 5 years, up 707%. Also of note, Sunrun did have their latest earnings call. Their earnings were 28 cents per share, which far outpaced any estimates and is great to see. One of the big things that they talked about with this merger with Vivint Solar was trying to reduce their costs and try to get out to as many people as possible. Of course, it's very early. This is their first earnings call, and it's not super indicative of that merger, but I'm very happy to see it, and I think I'm going to sit with my position here in Sunrun at 27 shares. Next up, we have the tech giant Microsoft, trading at $222.27. Total return, as we can see, is up about $173, or 18.5%. Market value here is up over $1,100. My average cost is down at $187, so very happy with this. If I am correct, I think Microsoft also had their earnings call very recently. Yes, they did. I did not look into that a whole lot, but it looks like they outperformed those estimates, and certainly with the performance of the stock today, I think that would be very true. So up about 3% on the day. On the month, up about 6.5%, but up and down. Over the past 3 months, up 4.5%. Over the past year, up 54%. Over the past 5 years, up 321%. I'm very aware that the markets are not going to continue to perform this well. They simply can't. I'm going to try to make as much money as I can now, and like I said, stay put and not pull out my money. I'm very young. I have plenty of time to make up money in the future, so I think sitting is the best thing for me to do. Next, we have Realty Income, or O. This, of course, being the largest REIT holding in my portfolio, and REITs have struggled because of the pandemic. We know that real estate has struggled, and especially these REITs where they're dealing with a lot of properties, there's just a lot of question marks and things that can go wrong. Real estate has performed extremely well since the crash in 2008-2009. Of course, real estate is going to fall off eventually, and certainly the way things have played out with the pandemic, the real estate industry has struggled. So down about 0.85% today, only about 50 cents. Not super concerned with that. Total return is down $4, but the monthly dividend here for me is, I want to say, around $2.80, and that's continuing to climb every month as I purchase more and more shares. So if we zoom out to the month, we can see it's down about 8%. As I said, not worried. Over the past 3 months, down 6%. Over the past year, down 26%. And 5 years, only up 17%. But that 17% is still pretty good. If we look here pre-pandemic, it was up about 66% with the dividend yield somewhere around, I want to say 5%. Yep, 4.7%. If we come down here to their latest earnings calls, we can see very consistent with what they've had. Have not looked into this earnings call a whole lot, but if I had to guess, I would say that their projections for the next year are looking pretty bleak. Not a huge concern for me. Again, this is a long-term portfolio. So we can see the dividend here on October 15th paid out $2.57. So being down $4 on this Alltime is a drop in the bucket. Not concerned about that at all. Second to last stock we'll talk about today is Walmart. Now trading at $143. My total return here is up $42.28, or up about 17.35%. Interesting here, these two shares were purchased just this year, meaning that this growth in the past 10 months has still been very good for Walmart despite what's happened with the pandemic. If we zoom out to the week, we can see up about 2.5%. Over the past month, up 0.5%. 3 months, up 10%. Over the past year, up 20%, and 5 years, up 150%. The reason that I really like Walmart, I cannot stress this enough, is that no matter what happens with the pandemic, they're an essential business that will continue to stay open. They're a moneymaker. When the economy slows down, Walmart does fine. When the economy speeds up, Walmart does fine. They're consistent, The dividend here is not very strong, but that just means there's tons of room for it to grow, and there's no reason to be concerned about Walmart, whether that be debt-wise or future-wise for them. So the dividend yield here is about 1.5%. Price to earnings ratio is at about 23, which is a tad high, but again, I'm not concerned. And this, I think, is one of the stronger holdings in my portfolio and something that I would like to continue to purchase. As mentioned earlier, Sony will be the last stock that we talk about today, and then we'll do one brief overview of Bitcoin. So total return here is up about $70 or 62%. I only have 2 shares. My average cost is down at $56. Of course, if I could go back in time, I would have purchased more shares of Sony. With the PlayStation 5 release being so soon, there's a lot of hype, a lot of good things to be excited about. And from my understanding, the early news is that the PlayStation 5 is set to outperform the new Xbox, which is huge. These are really the 2 main competitors in the space. And if Sony can take a large portion of the market of those new console sales, it could be huge for them. Over the past week, up about 7%. Over the month, up 22%. 3 months, up 12%. Over the past year, up 48%. And 5 years, up 216%. So Sony does pay a dividend, but one of the interesting things to note here is because they're a foreign company, it is taxed differently. I went back and looked at my tax paperwork from last year, and it's something to note. That being said, I think there's a lot of room for Sony to grow, both because of their prior history. If we come back here, their earnings have been spectacular. So we saw this trend upwards, and then my guess would be because of the pandemic, a lot more technology-related purchases, and those earnings skyrocketed. But I think that they have room to grow because of past performance, as well as the space continuing to grow. People are playing more and more video games. Last up, of course, we have Bitcoin trading at about $15.8 right now. My total return is up over $1,500, 61% return all time, now makes up 31% of my portfolio. My average cost is still down there at about $9,800, so that's great to see. Quantity, as I mentioned before, is about 0.262 Bitcoin. I'd like to see that about 0.3 by the end of the year, but of course with the price spiking, that may not be possible. I'll be continuing to purchase over the next year. If you're interested in Bitcoin at all, please comment down below and let me know what you think about this purchase, or rather this series of purchases that I'm making, and what you think the future of Bitcoin is. So up almost 10% on the day. Over the past week, up 19.5%. Over the past month, up 47%. 3 months, up 34%. Over the past year, up 70%. And 5 years, this is where it gets bonkers, up 4,300%. I cannot say it enough. I'm going to continue to purchase Bitcoin, try to buy as much as I can, while still being responsible purchasing stocks in my portfolio. I think there's a lot of upside here, and being as young as I am, I think it's definitely worth the risk. But if you disagree, or maybe you do agree, make sure to comment down below and let me know what you think, and I'll talk about it some more. Thanks for watching the end of the video, and I'll be back with another one next week.